All right, so for this game, we have a couple things going on. So we have what is, to start, a sequencing setup. So we have essentially these 5 issues that are going to go one at a time. And then for each of the issues, we have to kind of figure out 2 different things. We have to keep track of the theme of the issue, and we have to keep track of the photographer for the issue as well. Now, for the sequencing component, as usual, we're just going to set it up as a sequencing game. So across the top, we're just going to run our positions 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then to keep track of the 2 different types of things, we can essentially use a second tier, right? Since we have to essentially deal with, we can say, the photographer and the theme for each issue. Now, the photographers themselves happen to be F, G, H, J, and K. And the themes are going to be rural and urban. And they actually do give us numbers, and that's always important to keep track of. So we know that there's going to be 3 rural themes, and we're going to have 2 urban themes. So that's something to keep track of as well. Next, the rules. So the first rule tells us that the essay featured in the first issue must be rural. So I guess we can say that 1 has to be a rural theme. So we can plug that, whoops, that's a photographer. We can plug that into the rural slot. Next, K has to be immediately before F. So we essentially get kind of this KF block. Next, we're told that F cannot have the same theme as K. Now we do have K and F both on the board here, right? So we can kind of connect these rules together and kind of put them into one. So we can kind of say that in this situation, we can add this on and say that K and F effectively are going to have different themes, or in other words, one of them is going to have R and one of them is going to have U, since those are really the only types of themes that you can have here. So essentially, they're just going to have to split between the 2 one way or the other. Next, we are told that G has to be in the 3rd position. So I guess we can just plug that in, that 3 has to have G. And actually that's pretty good, because as soon as we know that G is definitely in the 3rd position, that effectively means that your KF block either has to go first and second rather, or 4th and 5th, which is a pretty good place to start if we wanted to exhaust this game. But we'll hold off on that for just a second. Let's just finish off the rules. The last rule tells us that J has to be urban. So I guess we can just going to say that J is going to definitely have an urban theme. So I guess back to the point, this is definitely something that we want to exhaust. We only have 2 major plays that are going to lock out a good chunk of the board, so we may as well take that opportunity. So we can play out 2 scenarios. Either the KF block is going to go into 1 and 2, or the KF block is going to go into 4 and 5. And in both cases, of course, G is still in number 3, and in both cases, R, the rural theme, is still in number 1. Now, in the top scenario, if the KF block goes into 1 and 2, that kind of takes care of the 2nd position as well in terms of the theme, because we know that we said K and F cannot be the same thing, right? Which means that if K and F cannot be the same theme, that effectively means that your 2nd theme is going to have to be urban. Now, from there, we actually could take a few steps further, because we know that the other urban theme is going to be J, and we're only allowed to have 2 urban themes. So essentially, in this first scenario, F is one of your urban themes and J is going to be the other urban theme, which means everybody else is going to have to be a rural theme. So we can kind of lock that in place. And the 4th and 5th positions now, well, we can kind of say that one of them is going to be a JU kind of block, and the other is going to be whoever's left over, which is H. And he's definitely going to be rural, because we're not allowed any more urban themes. So that's kind of taken care of. Essentially, just to kind of clarify, these 2 are going to split, right? You can either have JU or HR going back and forth between positions 4 and 5. Now, in the 2nd scenario, I guess what can we say here? Well, once again, we definitely know that these 2 positions are going to have to be urban and rural. One is going to be one and the other one is going to be the other. We don't quite know which is which, so we can say that these 2 are still going to split between them. But that said, though, we also know that J has to be an urban theme, which means if J has to be urban, The only real place we can put J being urban is really the second position, because this guy's already rural and this guy's obviously already G, which means we can actually nail this guy down. We can say J is going to be urban in the second position, which again also means that we've taken care of all of our urban positions, because J is going to be one of your urban slots and the other urban slot is somewhere between K and F, which means that now G is going to have to be rural because we're not allowed any more urban positions. In fact, the first position we also know is going to be H. So essentially this is pretty well taken care of. Now, from here, I guess we can go into the questions themselves. So the first question is our exclusion question. As usual, to be fair, normally we would do this by the rules, but the thing is we actually already have a really good setup in terms of kind of who the photographers are going to be in what order. There's only two possibilities. Either we're going to have the top scenario K, F, G, and then J and H one way or the other, or you're going to have H, J, G, K, F in that order. So we can really just look at all the answers and just compare it against that. So for example, answer choice A has F and J in the first two positions. No, you'll notice that that does not happen in either of our scenarios. So answer choice A gets disqualified. B, G and K in that order. And again, no, you'll notice that that also doesn't happen. Next, C, H and K in that order. Again, we have H first here, but then J would have to go second, which means that also doesn't work. C is out. Next, D, J and H in that order. Again, we have an H and J setup, yes, but we don't have any scenario where J, H go first and second respectively. So D is out. And E, K and F, and yes, we do have a scenario where K and F can start, and then that would be followed with G, and then we're going to have J or H splitting the last two positions, which would absolutely work. Next. Now, to be honest, since we have a pretty good exhaustion here, we can pretty much just go in order. So let's just take a look at the second question, regardless of the fact that it's a global question. Which of the following could be true? So what could happen here? A, F is featured in the issue immediately preceding J. So could we ever have an FJ block? Well, you'll notice that that doesn't happen in either of our scenarios. Either we have FG or F is last. So answer choice A here certainly couldn't work. B, G is immediately preceding H. Could we ever have G right before H? Well, actually, it looks like we could. In this top scenario, G would have gone third. And then J and H split, so H could have gone fourth as well. So arguably speaking, answer choice B is looking pretty good. Let's just take a look at the other ones. Answer choice C. H is immediately before K. Could we have H immediately before K? No, you'll notice that either K is first and H is certainly not right before it, or you have G and K in that order, so that certainly doesn't work. So answer choice C is out. D, J is immediately before K. And again, you'll notice that that never happens. Either J is right before G or K is first, so that certainly wouldn't work. Next, K is immediately before G, and again, that never really happens. Either you have KF or you have KF. In fact, in general, we have a rule that says K is going to be right before F, so answer choice E is out, which leaves us with answer choice B as the best answer here. Next, question number 3. If the essay in the fourth position is urban, well, if the essay in the fourth position is urban, it's worth noting that this is consistent with both possibilities, but both of them will kind of lock it down a little bit more specifically. So we know that in the top scenario, it would have to be J who is going to be urban here. In the bottom scenario, K is already locked in place, but he would be urban, and then F would be rural. So let's see what we can do with what we have. The question asks, each of the following could be true except. So what cannot possibly happen? A, F is second. Well, in the top scenario, which we said was viable, F could have gone second. Answer choice B, F is fifth. Well, in the second scenario, which was viable, F could have gone fifth. Next, answer choice C, H is fourth. And that you'll notice won't happen because if the fourth position is urban, well, we said either that's going to be J who is urban in the first scenario, or K is already locked in place and he would be the one who's urban, which means that it's impossible to have H be the fourth issue right now. The best answer to question number 3 then becomes C. For the record, if you wanted to just double check the other ones, answer choice D, H is fifth. That definitely could happen in this scenario over here. And J is fourth. That could in fact happen over here where J would have gone fourth and he would have been urban. So either way, best answer to number 3 is C. Next, number 4, what must be true? Answer choice A, the third issue is urban. Well, no, in fact, we actually know that the third issue is always rural, so that certainly doesn't have to be true. Answer choice B, the fifth position is rural. Well, that doesn't have to be true, right? Because we did say that the fifth position in both cases could have been urban or rural, so this certainly wouldn't have to happen. Next, answer choice C, Fetter's essay is urban. Well, in this scenario, we actually do know that F could have been either rural or urban. This could have split, which means that answer choice C doesn't have to be true. Answer choice D, G is rural. And actually, yeah, you'll notice that in both scenarios, the third position, which is always G, must be rural. So the best answer to question number 4 is D. Number 5, any of the following could be fourth except. So I guess let's see what we can do. What cannot be in the fourth position? Answer choice A, an essay by Fetter which is rural. Well, in the second scenario, this arguably was an RU split, although this was never an F, right? K had to go in 4 and F had to go in 5, which means, arguably speaking, that's actually a viable answer choice. It's impossible for F to have a rural theme in the fourth position. In fact, F can never go in the fourth position, period. So answer choice A currently for number 5 is in fact viable. Just in case though, let's take a look at the other ones. An essay by H has a rural theme. Well, top scenario that could happen, because this was a split, right? You could have had either JU go fourth or HR goes fourth rather, which means answer choice B certainly could have worked. Answer choice C, K goes rural. Well, that could happen here, right? Because we have K and that could have been either R or U. So C could happen. Answer choice D, J has an urban theme. Well, that could happen in the top scenario where J would have had an urban theme. So answer choice D certainly could be true. E, Kim has an urban theme. And in the second scenario, K would have been here. And this could have easily been urban. So the best answer here then becomes answer choice A. Next, question number 6. Which of the following, if we substituted it for the rule that says that F and K cannot have the same type of theme, would have the same effect on the game? So this is, again, one of our modifier questions. Now, the rule that we're trying to replace here is this one, which is that essentially F and K cannot have the same theme. Now, we already know that we're going to have KF in that order from a different rule. The rule that we're trying to replace here is the fact that they cannot have the same theme, which is to say that they will have to have different themes. So let's see what we can do. Answer choice A. H's essay must have a rural theme. Well, one question you should always be asking yourself is whether that always had to be true. And strictly speaking, that actually did always have to be true. We did say that H always has a rural theme as a rule. Well, as a deduction anyways, which means this did originally always have to be true. That said though, even though this always had to be true, would that guarantee that K and F are going to have different themes? Now, this one actually might be kind of tempting, because if H gets a rural theme, and we keep in mind we have numbers to kind of worry about here, right? We know that there's going to be 3 rurals and 2 urbans. If H has a rural theme, and we know that J has an urban theme, and we did kind of make the deduction that G has a rural theme as well, then the only things that would be left, in other words, we would have just locked out 2 rurals and 1 urban theme. The only thing that would have been left is 1 rural and 1 urban theme, which means K and F would be stuck having different themes. So that seems like it would be a viable answer choice. That said though, one thing that should bug you here is that J having an urban theme is given. This is locked in place. H having a rural theme is a rule that we were given with answer choice A. But the fact that G has a rural theme, that wasn't actually a rule that we were given in the first place. That was actually a deduction that we made based on the fact that K and F would have had a rural and an urban theme respectively, one way or the other. Which means that if that rule wasn't there in the first place, then we wouldn't necessarily be able to assume that G would have had this rural theme, which means that the numbers wouldn't necessarily go the same way. Now, this is an answer choice that you might want to leave open because you might be uneasy about how you figured out that G had a rural theme, whether it was based on this rule that we've replaced or not, but that should be a little bit uneasy. Next, answer choice B. G's essay and H's essay must both have a rural theme. So the thing is, answer choice B does exactly what answer choice A did, but it takes that extra step that we were missing. Because if we outright make a rule that G, we can actually even line this up. If we say that G is definitely rural, and we know that H is definitely rural, and we know that J, as we said earlier, was urban, well, what does that leave you with in terms of K and F? Well, the only thing it would leave you with is that one of them would have to be rural and the other one would have to be urban, because we would only be left in terms of the numbers with one rural and one urban, which means answer choice B effectively is a perfect answer choice. Even if you weren't sure about answer choice A, B does the same thing, but it takes that extra step, so it's almost certainly going to be a perfect answer choice over A. Just in case though, let's take a look at the other answer choices. Answer choice C, F cannot be the same type as J. Now for the record, that never had to be true because F and J could have had the same type of theme in both scenarios, in fact, because here F could have been urban as was J, and here J was urban and F could have been urban. So answer choice C didn't have to be true. Answer choice D, J must be featured immediately following a rural theme. Now, as it turns out, that's true. You'll notice that in both scenarios, no matter what, J always had to follow a rural theme, right? Just like here, no matter where you put the J, 4 or 5, it would have followed a rural theme. But the thing is, though, even if J follows a rural theme, that doesn't seem like it has much of an impact on K and F. In other words, does that really guarantee that they'll have to have two different types of themes? Couldn't they still have both rural themes? So this one, even though this had to be true, it doesn't seem like it would have much of an impact on K and F. And especially since we have answer choice B pretty much lined up already, there wouldn't really be much of a point to kind of follow through on answer choice D. Next, answer choice E. Kim has to be the same type of essay as G or H, but not both. Now this doesn't actually have to be true because K actually could have had the same type of essay as G and H as well, which means that if E never had to be true, this would not be a viable answer choice for a rule substitution. So the best answer choice to question number 6 is then answer choice B.